So we were talking earlier about or I mentioned earlier, the aspect ratio is really going from 4:3 to 16:9. You know, you have to stretch out the set, and then we have, that's the only, it seems like wherever there's no set, that's what ends up on TV. This is now on TV over here. That is on TV, and then a little bit back here. Mike built this. There's a scene back door. They built this too. And that slides all the way back over there to cover up. Then, after about a year, PBS, they decided they wanted to do it center safe. And then it's even worse. It's like 18 on 9 at that point, because you've got to have, anybody know is there anybody that doesn't know what center safe is? It's basically 4:3. And then, which is
what they also call center cut.
yeah, center cut. So you have to. So basically, if you have high definition at home, you see it's nothing. It's extra. It's just nothing. But it's a challenge for the sets because you see more of the set.
So why is that wider than 16:9?
It is 16:9 when you see it at home, but if you look at a center safe program, you'll look on the left edge and the right edge. There's really nothing there. I mean, it's stuff that's not necessary to the picture.
But when you're framing for standard cut safe, you're just framing the same 16:9. And the overall width is just your safe action.
It's actually a little more than 16:9 though. You're doing the center cut safe. If it's an over-the-shoulder shot, well, I'll show you once we get up here. It'll maybe be a little bit easier to show you. And we'll have this camera. We want to see what Mike looks like without makeup first, right? Mike, I'm sorry, Eric. Eric, can you turn around here?
Like Spectre. People of Earth.
Here's another thing that going digital has allowed is you'll notice like the Target ads on television, they have this blown out white background. They're just blown out. Back in the analog days, when things were blown out, it would leak into the audio, and you'd be sitting at home, and you'd hear the buzz, and you'd look at and the CG or something was too bright, and going through the analog transmitter, you got noise. Doesn't happen in digital. You don't get that noise. So I think this is all a big fad with all this bright white stuff, is because they can do it. They're doing it because they can. And it'll go away at some point.
These are not going to all end up on the internet, are they?
Here, I need somebody to sit right up here for a second. I'm going to just do a quick, you sit there. This is how, if you were shooting an over-the-shoulder shot in 16:9, it would be like that. So we'd have, and then, but if you wanted center safe, it would be like that. So what's happening in this center cut is you see back to the other set, up in the upper right hand corner. In just 16:9, if you were shooting, it would be like that.
So you're saying you have to design the different portions of the room so that when parts of the other sets appear in the scenes.
Evidently,
That's an
until
interesting
everybody
problem.
in America has a 16:9 television set, we're going to frame for the few people with the 4:3.
But that's an interesting issue, because they're not completely isolated sections. They actually end up showing up in each other's segments.
Right.
So it has to look cohesive, and it has to look
And we had to
decent.
change some of the lighting around and do some of that. It just seems kind of simple, but the first year we did it letterbox, right, Chris? It was pretty much letterbox. It was all 16:9, then it became a center cut, and then it was a greater issue. you would see camera hoods barely coming in on the shots. I mean, it's very tight in here.
Yeah.
And if you try and put 4 guests around this table, it's extremely difficult. It's in this small place.
But in terms of lighting, like I think what you just said, so for example, like when you pull back and you can see bits and pieces of the other sets, you actually have to make sure that those are lit as
Well, you need to make-
background
yeah.
of this set.
You gotta make sure
Differently
that-
than they'd be lit if they were the featured set. obviously.
Exactly, because it's something that you would normally not see. And you can tell, if you have a 16:9 set at home and you're watching in HD, and you can see if they're shooting, so there's a lot of air on either side, on the left and right edge, then they're shooting center cut or center safe. But, Mike?
Yes.
Okay, has that been an issue for you building sets?
No, because we generally just build what people design. I think the two issues for us are that the finished work has to be better than what you've been able, you can't get away with anything anymore. You just can't.
No shoe polish or pens.
No. And if you look around here, I mean, even after 2 years, I think this has been here, there's still some nice finished work to be seen. The other thing is that I think that if you watch a lot of what's going on TV, is that instead of trying to put a lot of architectural finish on a lot of scenery now, people are just putting backlit images and video and LED and plexiglass and all kinds of things. And I think that the graphics, for instance, resolve a lot of issues that you might have had with paint color chipping or with a laminate seam not being perfect. Being able to put a very high resolution, large graphic behind somebody kind of puts that to somebody, to the people who are producing the print and doing the graphic work. That's their problem now. So, these graphics, we've all seen on TV. I think that they make these really nice backgrounds, but you really, if you watch the show, you're not seeing a lot of what you're seeing here in the studio.
Are these fluorescent lit behind?
Yeah, they are. And I had a question about that too, because what we're using for this is a dimmable fluorescent fixture that they can run off their board. It's not perfect. But we're trying to make the transition into LED backlighting as well. So we're trying to figure out what that's going to mean, because a lot of times you don't know what these graphics are going to look like until you get them in here and you light it up.
Something I've never understood, and I seem like I notice it a lot now with the newer sets, and I don't know whether it's because of HD. Everything is this sort of, they're incredibly busy, a lot of the sets, like you said, and everything is blue. Blue everywhere. And
There's a reason for the blue,
I'm
though.
sure there is, but
We have the orange over here.
I ought to know what it
But
is,
people, their face looks better. And
Looks
Suzanne, you can speak to that. Generally, their flesh looks better with a blue background.
Right, okay.
It's very difficult doing, like Washington Week in Review is orange. And I think your eye naturally wants to fill in some kind of a spectrum. And what happens is you end up seeing green, whether it exists or not. I couldn't tell you. I don't have a spectrometer to read it, but I think your brain it's just too much. And
It's the chroma. I think a lot of it has to do with the chroma of the color and the saturation of it. And I see a lot of lavender as a background because it's very neutralizing to a lot of issues in scenery. So I think it has a lot to do with that aspect of it too. It's also more pleasing, obviously it helps with
I just find
commercials,
some of
too.
these news sets, I don't care for them.
I think ESPN looks like a giant pinball machine. And on the wide shot, you can't even see the people's faces. They're just
Right.
they're just in there. So I think that's the outside of it. You've seen
Far
that,
be it
right,
to
Mike?
figure out what they're thinking when they're creating a set, really.
Yeah.
I mean, it's if they're not thinking about, the homogenized effort that
should
it
be.
is because you've got clothing issues, you've got you've got bleed offs into the background, you've got different issues that happen, and what are you going to do?
Does anybody think about what the end product is going to be after it goes through MPEG-2 compression, and all these lovely lavender backgrounds suddenly have these, you know, dividing lines because of 8-bit color? Does anybody ever think about stuff like that?
I have no idea. I mean, you know, I'm only your.
What are you watching on your Apple? I mean,
No, I'm watching
telephone or something?
I'm watching on my home television set, and I'm seeing, you know,
So you're seeing a lot of it
Masterpiece
too.
Theater with their lovely graded, you know, red
Yeah, it's
backgrounds,
all-
which have the dividing lines, which
Yeah.
are, you know, 8-bit color.
Contouring.
And I'm like, did
Yeah.
nobody ever put this through the, I don't know, the ATSC encoder?
That
to
would
see how
be
it
Sam
look?
Basso right there, ladies and gentlemen. He could give you the answer to that.
I also heard that the blues tend to be easier with the camera technology to get the color to work than some of the other colors. Reds flare, you know, and some of the yellows do some funny things. But, you know, if you put blue on the set,
That flat
And I'll
out to
give you
make
a
it a
great
softer
example. We did
source,
the
you'll
sets
see
for
different
the presidential
lenses,
debate.
same thing
and
you do with
because
the
we were in
Fidels by
HD,
putting
we
diffusion
actually did
or
the same thing that
specifying,
everybody
et
else
cetera.
does, is that directly
All
behind the
information.
candidates, sort of to the left and the right, we did these large format rear-lit graphics that we could control the light, and we used incandescent light. And we tried to match the color of a rear-lit surface with the wall color around it, which is almost impossible to do. You know, to take something, blue opaque fabric here, blue rear-lit vinyl graphic next to it. They're not the same color, and yet on TV, they look almost exactly the same color. They're just, the blues just tended to work toward each other on camera and look great. You'd see it in real life, and it was like this blue and this blue. You'd look at it on the TV, and it would be almost perfect, so.
Yeah, I think
it's
part
easier
of
to see.
the issue here is that, you know, at least from my perspective, is that, you know, we want everything to be balanced out, background, flesh tones. Look on the monitor, it looks great. Maybe we don't think about how that compresses and resolves on the other side. I think it's a disconnect. I don't think about how it resolutes, you
Well,
know, on the other side.
you can't
When
always.
I worked
It's
in
hard.
Los
I
Angeles,
mean-
KTLA, the station there,
Uh-huh.
the graphics designer, an outside graphic designer, came in with a new film look to all their graphics. And it was a very high white.
Ooh,
Ooh.
Well, we actually made it work.
yeah.
How did you?
Well, the first thing she asked for was a scope.
Ah,
It's like, ah,
yeah,
we got somebody here. So we worked about 6 weeks on getting her colorimetry down in the system she was using. And the test to it, the final test we made, was to put the sample stuff that she was creating into the house RF system and walk over to an analog set and look at it and see if we had the buzz, which we didn't, because our high white was actually at 82.5. It's exactly where it settled
Okay.
in, where it looked exactly
So
pure
where
white
was
as
the
background.
face then?
Right.
Well, but then human people, remember, this was graphics generation. This
Yeah,
was
yeah.
coming out, being used as insertions, as on green screen, that sort of thing, and used as full screen promo stuff and all that.
Okay.
But when it hit the system, the analog system, this was 1998 that we were doing this. That high white wasn't quite oversaturated white, and all the rest of the colors that she put in there were exactly the film what she wanted. So it's possible to do it, you gotta work at it a lot. With digital systems now today going through the entire stuff you're talking about with the compressions and recompressions and decompressions and all that, you get a cone filtering effect on a lot of this stuff. So the blue you see beginning to line up and all that sort of stuff could be something of effect of that. Some of it could actually just be in the colorimetrics of the cameras themselves.
And they are different, right, Ed, the Sonys versus Ikegamis?
Slightly, I mean, they're all
I
working
mean,
around.
we at NewsHour had New York, when New York was
Right.
online, and this is,
Well, in the days of the lead tubes and
Yeah.
that sort of stuff, you had wild variations across, from scene to scene, from camera to camera. That's why there were video guys that's tweaking, all the time. Now it's a memory map in the system and it comes out the same all the time. So when you fire that camera up tomorrow, it'll perceive that blue in the background the same as it did today.
Don't forget the color gamut is defined by Rec 701. There's only a limited range of colours that have to be reproduced. So there are certain colours in real life that just don't make it through.
There's a curve that it goes
Which is
on.
why some colours don't.
Yeah.
That's why some colours look the same when you get to the other end.
Right, exactly.
Now, certain manufacturers are trying to get us to adopt extended colour gamut, the XVYCC, and that is problems. But you're going to see receivers that actually can display a much wider range of colours than
Colours
the
the
cameras
cameras
have been transmitted through the ATSC and through the standard system as well.
Well, there is a wider range of gamma with the HD signal.
No, gamut I'm talking about, not gamma.
Okay.
Gamma, which is the range of colours that
Gamma,
are
gamma.
defined by the three primaries,
Right.
which are fairly closely controlled. Most equipment applies to that.
Just another, I'd like to let Suzanne talk about makeup for a little while. But I did want to mention, you might notice a breakup on the wood. It's a little softer over there and a little softer back here. It's a little more pronounced over on this side. The reason for that is we only see it for the most part, on a single shot. And once you get on a single shot, it softens it up. Jim, tonight, if you were noticing, there was a camera here, and the monitor was here, and you saw a single shot of just Jim. And I've got to go. That's why had to go. He's got a key light up there, and that's back and forth between. He was looking at this camera and that camera. But when we first did it, and it had the regular breakup on the wall, it was just too soft, and it's all wood over there, and it's a solid wood background, and so that breakup really is the only thing that gives it a little depth, and that's really important in high definition. That things really help.
Cross texture.
Yeah.
It's very linear.
So it's a little more pronounced there, but sometimes what you see here, it doesn't look like that on camera. It looked a little softer.